Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are going to get started in just a minute. All right, so with that, I have 8 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us tonight for the 2018-2019 Alpine Skiing Preseason Coaches Webinar. My name is Kendall Zeslitz. I am the Sports Director for Special Olympics Maryland, who oversees the Alpine Skiing Program. Also on the webinar tonight, we have Matt Otwell, who's our Alpine Venue Director, George Hergenhan, and Steve Bennett, who are both Special Olympics Maryland employees and play a pretty large role in our winter games. So with that, Matt, I am going to unmute your line, so you should be all good to go for the next slide. All right, Matt, you're all good.
Yep, I'm good. Can you hear me, Kendall?
Sure can.
Okay, thanks for joining, everyone. Really appreciate you taking time out this evening. We're going to go through the slides pretty quickly, as not much has changed. There have been a couple major changes since last year's preseason webinar. Quite a bit of this information we covered very in detail in the coaches classroom training. So we're going to go through, talk about the Winter Games dates and the Alpine schedule, housing information, the registration dates, information on the helmets, changes that we're making to the staging, go over anything, any information pertinent to whitetail. Kendall will talk about the head coach certification. I'll speak to the Alpine events that are being offered in the race training weekends. Then we'll go over some highlights of the rules and talk about some quick on-snow tips. I would ask for everyone to keep your questions until the very end. We're going to go through things pretty quickly, but we want to leave plenty of time for questions at the end. And if you wouldn't mind, if you could type your questions into the box, that way Kendall can address them one at a time instead of having everyone fall over each other. That would be appreciated. So let's go ahead and jump into the next slide. So the dates listed, the race training dates will be January 12th. We did push it back 1 week this year. Typically, it's the first Saturday in January. We decided to go back to the second Saturday in January to give everybody a little extra time coming off the holiday and give everyone a little time to get ready and hopefully get greater participation. As we did last year, we will be opening up the race training events to both coaches and athletes at both the January 12th and February 9th race training dates. Winter Games and time trials, we did not have an opportunity last year to try this. As you've known in the past, previous years, we split the time trials to be at the Sunday of the second race training weekend. This was very advantageous to us and worked very well for several years. However, we saw challenges with the growing competition, growing times, different things happening. So what we wanted to do was take get back to a true weekend event. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity last year to try this. We feel like this is going to help us tremendously with the competition schedule on Monday and Tuesday, slow things down a little bit. One of the things that we heard from coaches, family members, and volunteers is having the games on a Monday and a Tuesday with the opening ceremonies on Monday. They've been tremendous. They've been great. However, there's a very rushed feeling to it. Get there, get the competition going, get it done, get out of there. So we're really hoping that we can have the games this year. You know, let's all knock on wood for some good snowy weather, and we can get to a good 3-day event, having time trials on Sunday, competition Monday and Tuesday, spread things out a little bit, a nice flow to the games, and really enjoy it for everybody. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to go over the schedule in detail. Again, this is the same schedule we outlined last year. We really believe this is going to help with the flow of the games, give everyone plenty of time, not just to get to each of their events, get time to watch each other in the events, and also have plenty of time for lunch. So,
And Matt,
go ahead, Steve.
sorry to step in. If we can go back one slide there, Kendall. As Matt said, this is the same schedule as we looked at last year. This is Steve Bennett, by the way. Just two things, points of emphasis on this slide on Sunday. If you don't remember, last year's Sunday, as Matt mentioned, would be the opening ceremony in the evening. That will be following the dinner that both will be at Whitetail Resort. So just a reminder on that. And then once we get all the time trials, we'll work with the coaches to do an electronic distribution of the schedules for Monday and Tuesday. So back to you, Matt.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, I actually caught that at the bottom. I was going to touch on it. Didn't have a whole lot of time to practice these slides, so I appreciate you jumping in there.
No problem.
Monday, again, we're going to jump into competition in the morning. Again, we feel that this is going to help out with the flow of the day, give athletes and coaches an opportunity to get to their events in a timely manner and have time left over to go cheer on their friends and athletes in other events. As you can see at the bottom, back there we go. The dinner and dance for Monday evening will be at the Ramada Plaza Hotel, and with the family reception will be at the Homewood Suites. Thanks, Kendall. Let's go ahead to the next slide. Tuesday, similar schedule. Get up, get going, get the whitetail, have everything going hopefully very fluidly through the games, and then wrap everything up on mid-afternoon on Tuesday. So we don't have the entire Alpine competition schedule set. We did have it set for last year. However, each year we try to make continuous improvements with the events, with the schedule. It gave us additional time to look at the competition schedule, talk it over with staff, talk it over with other with coaches and venue directors. This was a topic we talked about at the coaches classroom training. So as I discussed before, we hope it's going to be a more balanced schedule, offer better flexibility for everybody, and give us the opportunity to add some more events in there, not just this year, but we're looking further down the road as well. Thanks, Kendall. Next slide, please.
And Matt, I can take some of this.
Yep.
For the housing, we anticipate, as Matt mentioned, the athlete social and dance would be at the Ramada Plaza, and the Homewood Suites would have the family reception. We are currently in negotiations with our housing properties in the area, so nothing is 100% set at this time, but no, we are in the final stages of those. So we don't anticipate any of the delegation locations changing from not last year, but the year before. So again, we'll be in that same general area with the Ramada Plaza. I believe it's a Sleep Inn and or the Country Inn and Suites, and the other property right there in the same location. One of the things for the athlete social, if you want to be the cool kids on the block and the first to know, we did not change the theme of the dance from last year, so we will continue to use the theme this year, which is the Monster Mash. Okay. And Kendall, do you want to hit this?
Definitely. So everyone's favorite thing with our competitions are deadlines. We're coming up on our first deadline on January 10th. This is the training registration deadline. This is when you need to have all of your athletes, unified partners, coaches, volunteers. Everybody needs to be in GMS within the Alpine skiing training. The next deadline that's going to come up shortly after is on January 21st. And this is the last date for missing forms to be submitted to headquarters. So every athlete has to have a valid medical through the end of winter games, which is going to be February 26th of this year. And all coaches, partners, and volunteers must have their proper certifications valid through the end of winter games. So I will be sending out tomorrow, along with the link to these slides in the recording, a spreadsheet that will show every coach and volunteer that you had listed last year and this year, and where they stand with their certification. So for a coach, what they need is the volunteer application, protected behaviors, concussion training, and the sport-specific certification. Volunteers and unified partners just need to have protected behaviors and volunteer applications. But what I send out tomorrow will help you guys get a jump start on that. I know being around Christmas time, it's hard to get things done. So if we can take care of that as soon as possible, it's definitely easier on you in the long run. The last deadline is our competition registration deadline, which is going to be on February 10th. This is when everyone in your delegation must be entered into their events in GMS. This gives us proper time to get everybody in, make sure they have all their right stuff submitted, and just start looking at things for potential divisions. Along with the head coach certification, which I kind of just explained. So this is valid for 3 years. A lot of you came to our coaches classroom training a few weeks ago, so thank you for coming to that. When you attend that, it's good for 3 years. Another way that you can do it is going to a live webinar or an online course. So the next slide kind of shows what you can do to renew your certification. So if you were unable to attend our coaches classroom training and you see that your certification is up, one way that you can do that is doing the Coaching Special Olympics Athletes course or the Principles of Coaching course. That will help you renew. However, if you are a brand new coach, you need to do one of those courses in addition to the sport-specific session. If you have any new coaches that are joining, you have questions about this, please feel free to reach out to me either by phone or email. I'm here to help you with that. All right, helmets, what I've been so excited to talk about all night. So our helmets have finally arrived. They came to our Baltimore office right before Thanksgiving. I will be reaching out to all of the head coaches by the end of the week to schedule either a pickup or a potential delivery, depending on where you are in the state. If there's someone from your county who you would prefer for me to reach out to that isn't the head coach, please just send me a quick email and let me know. For the counties who have not ordered these helmets, they are required for on-snow training as well as for actual winter games. So the helmet is pretty specific with a certain sticker that we need. It's the FIS RH 2013 specification. It's a hard covering on your ears, so it's just a lot more protective. So if you have any questions, again, please just let me know. I'm here to help, but we're really excited to get these helmets in your hands. So thank you so much for working with me on these.
And Kendall, hey, this is Mike. Hi, everybody. Just a clarification point on that, because I know I've gotten several questions on this. When we say that they're required for on-snow training as well as winter games, we're referring to when they're on an actual race course, or one of the race courses where it's required. So they do not need to have these helmets when they're just out training on the regular slope and such. It's required when they're in an actual race course. And Kendall, I don't know if you can clarify the two races that it applies to, but I just want to make sure, because I've gotten tons of questions on this individually from folks.
Yeah, so the only races that isn't required for are the super glide, the glide, and the slalom, just because you're not picking up as much speed as you are with our other events that we offer. And this also goes along with coaches and volunteers and unified partners. If you are running down the setup course for those specific events, then you have to have this helmet. All right, George, if you want to talk on this new staging procedure, I just unmuted your line, so you should be good to go.
Thanks, Kendall. And just backing up 1 second to the helmets, you said that they were required in the Super Glide. I think you meant the Super G. Glide and Super Glide, it just seems like you're going fast when you're on that course. So we've been talking about a new staging procedure. And I know some of you have probably heard some of these things already, so I apologize if I'm repeating anything. But we just wanted to have an opportunity to get everybody's input on this and their thoughts and any questions you might have. This comes from the fact that we have always had a bit of difficulty recruiting enough volunteers on a Monday and a Tuesday because it being a weekday, and so we never seem to have enough escorts. So the first thing to make clear is that we are not talking about a new procedure for the time trials on Sunday. Time trials on Sunday will remain the same. You'll have an appointment for your entire area, all the athletes in your area to show up at the race course, and we'll stick with that same procedure that we've used in the past. What we're talking about is a new escort, new staging procedure for the games on Monday and Tuesday. And as I said, we've always had difficulty in recruiting enough escorts, so we wind up pressing the coaches into service. So in a way, we're just going to formalize that. We're just going to ask the coaches to be involved. Staging will take place at the race course rather than at the tent at the base of the mountain. That way we have, the coaches bringing folks up there. We'll have some volunteers there if you don't have enough people to go through the courses and back up for the second run. But we'll increase our volunteer base and keep things flowing, I think, pretty smoothly. It remains that everything is 2 runs, so we'll ask you to escort them down after the first run, bring them back up for the second. And then after the second run, everybody needs to go to the awards area where they usually have staging set up in an awards staging location. And that would be where you would take them after the second run. Kendall, do you have another slide on? Did you have the slide that I prepared on this?
I have the Word document that I could pull up real quick.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I added it in there, George. It should be the next slide.
It just summarizes the changes.
Oh, no, it's not in there. Okay.
Okay, if you could just pull up the Word document.
Sure.
It just summarizes the changes for everyone and how it's changing.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I know we had just done it. All right, here we go.
Okay, thank you. So just to run through this real quick and just to summarize the changes that would take place. We always give you a time to bring your athletes to staging, and under the existing procedure, that was to show up at the staging tent at the base. The new procedure would be that this would be when the time would be when you would report to the race course. So that would be one change. And then staging would take place at the race course. So we would have volunteers at the race course who would be making sure that all members of an individual heat arrive and they assemble the heats and then assign escorts to that heat. So the coaches would be the first people to be assigned to a heat. If we don't have enough coaches, we would use some volunteers. Escorts would normally have taken the athletes from the staging tent through the 2 runs and then to awards. Now we're just asking the coaches to do that from the top of the course and then end up at awards. Just to make clear, backing up to in the staging area where we say staging at the race course. So the time to report would be the time that you would report to the course. Once the heat is together, then everybody would go to the race course. If everybody's there early, then they would go early to the race course. This has always been the policy. They would leave the tent early if everybody from a heat had arrived a few minutes early, then they would go. But if everybody's not there, they will wait until the posted time before releasing a heat to the race course. I think, like I say, we think this is going to work pretty well. We're going to make a final decision on this on the first Saturday of race training. And a suggestion was made that we might try a little bit of practice. We may organize a few of you and to show up and stage, do a mock staging. so that we can see how it works. And then the final decision will be made, like I said, that first Saturday. And we may just go with one race course this year to give it a try. We'll see how we feel about it. We might do more than one, but we will certainly let you know immediately after that first day, that first Saturday practice. In the meantime, if you have any concerns, any questions, any suggestions, please, at the end of the webinar, let's hear them because the more input, the better when we're making a major change like this. All right, I think that pretty much covers it, Kendall.
All right, so
Thanks,
Matt,
George.
back to the courses.
Yep. Thanks, George. Again, just to reiterate, we're very excited about this potential change. We believe it's going to help the efficiency and the flow of the games even more. As many of you know, we've had some challenges with staging in the past. One thing happens, then it's a cascade problem. Then it just trickles down and affects other things throughout competition. So we typically don't like to make more than one change in a season. As we're making the change with time trials, we were hoping to implement that last year. Didn't get an opportunity, so we're even more hopeful this year with these two changes where we can really have a great, fluid, and joyful games for everyone. So looking at the trails for whitetail, no major changes this year. We did have an opportunity at last year below Park Place. We did move over to the right on the bottom of Snow Park again for some of our training last year. Many of you recall we had our courses set there for many years. Then we moved over to Stalker. The primary reason for moving over to Stalker was to utilize the area at the base so we can have more events ending closer to the base for more spectators to be able to get to see the competitions. Again, with the challenges of terrain, we're going to continuously work with whitetail to utilize the events, utilize the areas that we have, and then make the decisions as we get closer. Let's go ahead to the next slide, please. And I apologize, you guys are hearing my 3-year-old. Apparently he's not ready for bed and he's calling my name. So Steve, I'm going to go on mute. If you could talk about the general layout at Whitetail, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. Again, pretty much the same for those of you who've been involved with Winter Games in the past. On Sunday night for the opening ceremony, it will be in the evening, as we mentioned, behind on the back side of the location where it's directing you to the food and the food court. That's where dinner will be served. And then on the back patio area, that's where the opening ceremonies will take place. In that same building, that's where lunch will be distributed. And then upstairs is where the control center will be located for registration for the head coaches to come and check in. That's where also we'll have some of our other operations at the race training dates. The control center will then move over to the building on your far left of the screen, the larger building, the same place it has been located in previous years. We'll also have, similarly to what we've done in the past, the ability to store the skis for each delegation overnight. That's where the location that says rental center, the ski and snowboard location right there in that general location. There will be signs, and we'll talk with you on site to let you know exactly where that is. And those are the main things there.
Great, thanks, Steve. Events that we're offering as far as alpine skiing, again, we're going to have giant slalom and slalom at the advanced, intermediate, and novice levels. We'll also have unified races for advanced slalom and intermediate slalom. And then our ever popular race, it is by far the most fun race, and it is increasing in popularity every year, are the Super G races. We're going to have, again, advanced and intermediate Super G, a unified in both event. And since it's so fun, something new we're going to add in this year is we're going to bring the coaches fun run back at the Super G. So we're very excited about that. One thing that's not on the slide that we're talking about is having another demo for snowboarding. We're working through some challenges there, and we'll see if we can Again, one of the challenges we're having is just getting any program off the ground is always a challenge. So we may or may not have snowboarding as a demo. Thanks, Kendall. Next slide. Race training. We made some adjustments last year. We felt that we had some very good opportunities to get interactions between all of our instructors and clinicians and athletes and coaches. We feel that having everyone there on the same weekend not only gives athletes the opportunity to go through gates early in the season so they can work on what race skills they need to focus on before the next race training, but it gives us an opportunity to provide very specific feedback. One thing you may recall that we implemented last year at the intermediate and advanced course, we had clinicians and instructors located at the bottom of the race course, watching athletes and coaches coming through the race course and immediately providing feedback to everyone at the bottom of the course. And I can tell you, personally, I watched this happen last year, saw some tremendous improvement throughout the day. Minor things such as entering your turn too early, too late, going more into parallel, things of that nature. Saw some great improvements with both coaches and athletes throughout the day. So we're very excited to bring that back again this year and looking forward to the first one on January 12th. One other little thing about that, if you do want to schedule some time specifically with a smaller group with a clinician, Kathy Cowdery will be at the location on Saturday morning, and just work with her if you want to schedule a specific time during the day for several of your athletes, coaches, and we can get a specific session for you. Thanks, Kendall. Next slide, please. So the rules of competition, we basically utilize, we go through FIS and the Alpine U.S. Ski and Snowboard Association. We have those links found here, and all the rules are set by these international and national bodies. Next slide. Here are some additional links for Alpine that cover the Special Olympics International Alpine Skiing rules and other additional information in regards to protocol and etiquette from Special Olympics International. Next slide, please. Kendall, would you mind taking this slide?
Definitely. So to start off, how we division all of our athletes, we division them. They're going to all be in their event level. So novice, intermediate, advanced. We go by age groups and gender first, and then qualifying time second. So we typically won't combine age groups. However, if there's only 5 people who are doing the super glide and they aren't too far apart in age, to give them some good competition, we will combine those groups. We have the listing of what exactly our age groups are down there. Another thing for our general competition rules is that we do not permit the use of any alcohol, tobacco, vapes, anything at our training or competition venues. So this applies to on-snow training as well as winter games. Winter Games is kind of a different event where it's 3 days with 2 overnights. So please remind all of your coaches, athletes, unified partners, volunteers, they need to abide by these rules. We also ask that there is no profanity or abusive language at any time. We're trying to create as great of an atmosphere as possible for our athletes and for all of our spectators who come out. So please just encourage that when you're speaking with your team. Prior to the actual Winter Games, I will be sending out a copy of our codes of conduct. We have them specific for athletes, for spectators, for coaches. It's just a good thing to go over to remind everyone, 1, why we're here, but 2, how to present themselves in a respectable way. More information will be found in the competition guide for Winter Games, so that will be coming out probably in the month of February. But if you have any questions about general competition rules, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, Kendall. As I mentioned earlier, we're not going to go through all the different rules. There are no rules changes this year, but we do want to highlight some of the specific rules changes from last year to make sure everyone is aware of these. All of the rules are listed in the next couple of slides. So please, as Kendall mentioned, please review all them. If you have any questions at any time, please bring them up. Helmets. I'm not going to go into that. Kendall already discussed the changes to helmets. 1 minute rule and 2 minute rule. This was a change for the intermediate, and advanced levels. Instead of having 2 minutes when an athlete falls, that they will have 1 minute as the timer will kick off when the athlete falls on the course or runs off the race course. They'll have 1 minute to gather themselves, right themselves on the course, and continue going. As the athlete goes through, if they fall again, that 1 minute will reset. However, at any time during the run, if an athlete falls 3, 4 times, the course officials can make the decision for the safety of that athlete and other athletes to have them taken off the race course. The race start, no real change, but we want to make sure we focus on this. The race start the athlete can start at any point from 5, start from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What we recommend is working with your athletes that as soon as they hear 5 to start on the course. Coaching. This is something that's come up quite a bit in the past, especially with coaches as escorts. The specific rule is coaches are not allowed to give coaching commands while their athlete is on the race course. So up to that point, and the way we're going to work it this year with staging, as staging will be done at the race course, just outside the race course, we will have an enclosed area outside that is attached to the race course. So we're going to consider that staging area part of the race course itself. So once an athlete enters the course area, that is where coaching will need to stop. On the lift, on the way to the course, by all means, as you're looking at the race course, if you want to give your athletes some tips and tricks as they're seeing it, that's not an issue. But once they enter that staging area, coaching must stop. Super G. This is not necessarily a rule. This is as the competition. We want to stress that the first run is a practice run. So every athlete will get an opportunity to do that first run as a practice run. The second one will be timed. We've had questions in the past. Well, they had a good run on the first one. Can't that be their time one? These rules are the Special Olympics International rules, and this is what we will abide by. The Super G will be first run as a practice. The second one will be timed. Time trials, only one good run is required. As we've done in the past, if you feel your athlete has had a good run on their first one, they don't necessarily have to take a second run. If there are challenges with weather or any issues in regards to safety of the athletes, we may make a decision to just go with that first run for the athletes. Now, if they do have a DQ on that first run, they will by all means have the opportunity to do that second run so they can qualify. Slalom course. This is not necessarily a rule change. This is a course layout change. The outer markers. So we have the breakaways that are for the turn gates, the red and blue. The outer marker poles. In years past, it's been a 1-to-1. For every turn gate, for every turn pole, there's been a marker pole. Last year, Special Olympics International changed the course layout to where only the first gate and the last gate will have that marker pole. Throughout the rest of the course, it will only be the turn gate. This may be a little different from a visual perspective for your athletes, so just make sure you work with them. And again, we will have this exact setup at race training. Let's go ahead to the next slide, Kendall, and I think we're about to wrap up here.
I actually have a quick question from Larry Pearl. So will athletes at the top of the race course for their second run get priority over the first run athletes? This will allow coaches and athletes to get to different races.
We hope that, again, please save all your questions to the very end. We will address everything. What we're hoping is that the way we're staggering and spreading out our competition schedule, that will not be an issue with athletes having to get to their second races. We believe we're going to have enough buffer and time between all competition events to where that won't be an issue at this year's games. So these are the rules. As you can see, they're very small print. We're not going to go through them in detail. So let's just go on to the next slides. On snow tips, I'm not going to go through these in detail as well. So please go through. Coaches, more than anyone, know your athletes better than anyone. So just make sure you're aware of any any of their needs while they're on the slopes, clothing, their diet, and especially if one thing we try to reiterate every year is hydration. Even though it's cold outside, everybody's being very active, and just please make sure that your athletes and yourselves are hydrating well. Next slide, please. Again, just additional tips. If there's any questions of these at any time, please let us know. And that wraps up the slides. And at this time, we'll open it up to any questions. Again, please type your name into the questions bar. Kendall will see it, and we can address your questions.
So far, no questions, but someone might be typing.
Okay, well, I'll open it up. Steve, Kendall, George, is there anything else that you guys would like to touch on while we're waiting for questions to come in?
No, I think, as we all feel as from the management team and from Special Olympics and all of our leadership volunteers is you guys as coaches, it doesn't happen without you guys. So we definitely appreciate all the time. I know most of you guys are multiple sport coaches. So we appreciate the time that you took tonight and then leading up through the season to have a successful winter games for the athletes and partners. So just really can't emphasize that enough, that how much we appreciate your dedication to the movement, to Special Olympics, and to the athletes and partners to give them great opportunities to showcase their skills. And again, as Matt has said, if you have any questions or any additional thoughts in regards to the staging or any of the questions that may come up after reviewing some of the slides at a later date, don't hesitate to reach out to Kendall and anyone here at the office. We'll be happy to address those questions.
And in that time, William Parla did put his hand up. So, William, your line is unmuted if you still want to ask your question.
Sure. About long lift lines, can we still use the ski class lines?
Yes, typically what we do is we work with Mike Schumann and Whitetail personnel. If there is a significant crowd, and again, this is at the discretion of Whitetail, we are allowed to use the ski class lift lines to circumvent the lines. However, depending on the day, depending on if it is extremely overcrowded, that is at the discretion of Whitetail. They've been very generous to us to allow us to do that in the past. I don't see any reason that they wouldn't let us do that this season, but we'll definitely verify that with Mike Schumann, and we'll make that announcement at the morning of race training.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not seeing any other raised hands or questions, so I'll do one last call for that. And if you think of anything like in a few hours or tomorrow, please just feel to reach out to me. And if I don't know the answer, I'll make sure to reach out to Matt and get you one. But thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I'll be sending all this information out tomorrow morning, and I'm really looking forward to hopefully a snowy winter so we can finally have our winter games. Have a great night.
Thank you, Kendall. Have a great evening, everyone.